Welcome to the SPEAKPact podcast, where high-performing speakers and the producers who hire them merge to give you the insider secrets to the lucrative speaking industry. Antoniette Roze, your podcast host and celebrated speaker agent, unveils insider success strategies. Discover a nexus of thought leaders and bookers, maximizing your potential in each and every episode. Your ticket to ultimate speaking success begins right here. Catch the transformative insights waiting for you on the SPEAKPact podcast, hosted by the industry powerhouse herself, Antoniette Roze.
A man who has created a large voice for himself. And we're going to journey through how that happened, how we went from somebody that few people knew about to somebody now who is an in-demand speaker. So welcome to our stage, Antoni. I am thrilled that you're here with us today.
Thank you so much. We almost have the same name, you and I.
You know, a lot of times people call me Antoni. I
won't do that.
I was in a pageant once, and that they were naming all these, gorgeous women on the stages, and then comes me, and there's like, and welcome, Antoni. It was like they totally botched up my name, a man's name for a woman. But you know what? It's all good when you have a little bit out of the ordinary name. Can you say your full name for me? Because it is a gorgeous name, and I do not want to botch it.
Well, thank you. It's Antoni Lacinai, and Lacinai is an Albanian name. My dad is from Albania. He came from Albania to Sweden, where I live today. And this is impossible for any Swede to pronounce. So they go for Lacasino, Lancia, Lakinaki, Lasagna. I have even been called last night at one point, and I think that should be my password for everything from now on. Let's see.
Ooh, now we all know.
Yeah. Now it won't be. Yeah.
Well, you've really you've carved out a pretty incredible space for yourself as a global keynote speaker. You've got 14 books under your belt, either fully written by you or collaborative projects. And you really are a master at communication, to the point where, yes, you do this on stage. You train about communicating with teams and that whole dynamic and how to reach your audiences at a higher scale in groups. You do those group trainings, but you also train one-to-one. And I would love for you to bring your insights, because communication is key. First of all, what in all the different things you could have done, what made you hone in on communication as being that one core? I know you do a few other things, but that's really at the core of your work. What made you hone in to communication?
You know how when you realize that you have a knack for something, you have a talent for something, and people encourage you in that, and they say, you're doing this really well, and all of a sudden you think, yeah, I'm pretty good at that. So let me continue that journey. And I think that's happened to me. I still remember when I was very young, I was like 7 or 8 years old, and we had this parent-teacher thing going on in school, and the principal talked and then asked, if we have any questions. Nobody, this is in Sweden, of course, so nobody had any questions. They're pretty shy people from that perspective. And I, put up my hand, and I had a question, and she really saw me, the principal, and she listened to me, and she gave me a response. And I did it 1 or 2 more times, and that was, over the top. But I was so encouraged by that. So I felt, from that point that, there's something going on there. People take me seriously, even though I'm so young. So I think that is one of those first moments that I can remember that probably drove me into this type of field. And then when I started to work, I went into sales and then marketing. I did a lot of presentations in my work for customers and coworkers and so on, working in international environment and so. So it kind of became a natural part of my work as well. And then I decided to leave the corporate career in 2006, so 18 years now when this is recording. And the first thing I did was to do a lot of MC work and moderator work, because I did that internally in that global company I worked for. So I would travel the world being this program leader as part of my work. And then I also did a lot of presentation skills training for other people who wanted to be better at that when they talk to customers or colleagues and so on. So that's how it started. But then more and more people started to ask me, we can't spend 2 days or 3 days with you. Can you do something shorter for us to just give us something? And I think that's how it kind of started for me to go from being a trainer once I started my own company into going back into presentation mode again myself, looking into communication and motivation and engagement and psychology and those things that I really enjoy looking into. I think there's so much to decipher in this world.
Yes. And I love that you said that when you communicated, when you opened your mouth, you felt that you were seen and heard, and there was a connection between you and your teacher, your instructor, that you hadn't really experienced before. And I think the same is true. We're no longer, school pupils, but we're pupils of life, right? And the first thing that has to happen when any speaker enters a stage is that connection and community piece where people feel like they belong, they're in the right place. And that's something you really mastered. And I can see that as you stepped into being an MC at the beginning and a moderator, that's your job, right? Is to make sure everybody knows they're in the right place, they're feeling connected, they're feeling engaged. That's a huge job. If you can get that done, then the rest of your talk is cake, right? If you can just get that engagement piece, that connection and community. So you somehow honed in on that at a pretty young age and then just built on that.
Yeah, and I was totally impractical. So I'm like a practical idiot. I cannot use my hands for anything smart unless riding a bike or something like that. So I had to be good at something else, I guess. And that was to build relationships.
No hammers, no screws. Just
those are lethal weapons in my hands. Very bad at that. Unfortunately,
just the tool of your voice, which is a very, very powerful tool.
That's the one, and facial expressions and body gestures and things like that. I don't do as much MC or moderator work anymore. I've decided to cut back on that quite a lot, mainly because it's better to be clear in my positioning of what it is I'm bringing to the table, and I want to focus on the content and the insights I can bring instead of my process expertise and so on. So I see them as two different animals, even though we're on the same stage. For me, being a moderator is running a marathon, while being a speaker is running a sprint. It's different type of energy going on.
That is a really interesting way that you just put that. I was going to go a little different direction, but I want to stick right here for just a moment. So when you're an MC, you're out there in the front, right? Just really trying to continue to keep everything going and alive and exciting. But when you're the speaker, it's more of that longer game where you want to get a little bit deeper and go a little bit further with the audience. So I love the way that you put that, a sprint versus a marathon. I can see it visually now that you spoke it.
Yeah, I mean, you can go deeper, of course, in the topic that you talk about as a speaker, but you're there for a much shorter time. So that means that you have to pour out your love and energy in a shorter time. It could be 30 minutes. My shortest one so far has been 4 minutes, and that's really short. That's too short. A number of 9-minute things as well, but normally it's like half an hour to an hour. That is kind of the normal kind of length of a keynote.
Sure, and it gets harder. It gets harder, shorter, right? Like those TED Talks, TEDx Talks. Who was it? One of the founding fathers, I think, said, I would have written you, if I had more time, I would have written you a shorter letter, because it takes more strategic concentration to get your thoughts in a way that can be received in a shorter span of time.
Oh yeah, it takes more effort to do it like that. And if it's short, I script it like word by word, and then I do words in bold in order to emphasize those words, and I do spacing so I know where the pause is. I do all of those things. It takes quite a lot of time, but I think it's worth it. So
how did you step in from a corporate professional man to getting these initial MC and moderator engagements?
Well, I left the corporate career, as I said, back in 2006, and I also moved cities. So we did everything at the same time. The family and I, we just moved to another place in Sweden, and And I had nothing, and I don't like to, this is another thing, I don't like to do cold calling. I've done 12, I think, over 18 years. That's not my forte. I don't even enjoy it. So I needed to find other ways of doing it. And it started out through networking, finding people, telling people about what I'm doing right now. This is what I'm working with right now. Is anyone who needs it, and so on. And then getting the first gigs led to new ones, and then led to new ones, and then all of a sudden I was booked. So it was more like networking, building relationships, and then proving myself, and then constantly working on my game. So I've become better and better. If I look at what I do today compared to what I did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I absolutely believe that I'm better today than I was then. I don't think I was bad, but it was just like, I've had this idea about always growing. So,
yes.
So I
we
want
should
to
always evolve. Otherwise, just hang up your hat, right? If you're not.
Well, yeah, to some extent. I mean, there are some people who are maestros in whatever they do, but that does not mean that they stop working on their game.
Yes. Okay, so you said you networked. Did you join organizations, or did you really just get the word out through your professional?
Well, at that time, it was more like the word out, and I also did some, cold calling, if you will. I found out that there was a new initiative in the telecoms business close to where I live, and I was working at the telecom industry at the time. So I said, "Hey, I've been working in the telecom industry, and I've been doing moderation work, and I've been doing this. Do you want me? Do you need me?" And they said, "Yes, come and be our host." And I said, "Don't you want, some sort of references or anything?" "No, if you don't succeed, you will never be invited back," they said. So I actually did that, and then I did it for 12 years in a row afterwards. They liked me, obviously, so that was good. But then just one thing led to another. Even though I have a marketing background as well, I know how to segment, I know how to position things. To be honest, and this might not be the best advice for anyone, but it's like I wish it, and then I work towards it, and then it happens. Not necessarily the time frame I want. I'm a very impatient person, so I'm still kind of working relentlessly to spread my message, the insights I have, and also building my business and so on. I don't see myself ever being finished with anything, like we talked about before. Yeah.
Yes, there's tremendous science behind the whole concept of intentionality, right? When you wished it, you set your energies in that direction. You set your mind on it. Let's say you're wishing for a certain kind of car, right? All of a sudden, you start seeing that kind of car everywhere, which you'd never really seen it before. So that is your body in motion working you towards your goal. And I really believe, so much so that it's my first step with every speaker that I work with, no matter where they're at in the journey, how further down the line they are, or if they're just emerging. This is such a critical step. And that is really getting to the core of who are you and what the bleep do you want, right? Because once you set that intention in motion, everything starts working on your behalf, your mind, your body, your cells, but also just things start happening. And if you don't know where you want to go, I know we've heard this a million times, but I think because we've heard it so much, we diminish the value of it. And it's really the foundation. If we don't know where we want to go, we're not going to get there.
No, at least not. I mean, sometimes it's hard to be very specific on where you want to be and where you want to go, but you can still have a direction. And there is this thing in the brain called the reticular activating system that does exactly what you're talking about now. If you want to buy a car, you can see that model everywhere. So that's probably something that works. And then some people say, no, it's the secret, it's synchronicity, it's the universe. You know what? I don't really care. I know it works, but it doesn't work if I just sit back and watch Netflix the whole day just because I wished it. I don't give 2 pennies for that. We need to put in the work as well. But now at least we know what kind of work we want to put in and to where we want to go. So sometimes we come to a dead end, fine, move back a couple of steps, take another one. There's always possibilities to go forward. And I remember talking to this pioneer within mental training, the first sports psychologist in any Olympic games, for instance. And he says, you should persevere and give up quickly. Ooh. And I said, tell me more about that. And he said, perseverance is about understanding what your end game is, what your ultimate goal is, what your vision is. But to give up quickly means that you whatever road doesn't take you there, give it up and try another one. It was such a great advice, because sometimes you fumble. You don't really know where to go, and you have to kind of try it and see, no, this was the dead end, or this was the wrong turn in the roundabout. I need to go back and find another one, and so on. So great advice, I think.
And what I love too is it's not like giving up. It's giving up that false start or that wrong road. Recognize it and redirect. Right? Don't stop, but also don't beat a dead horse. Right? That's horrible. Who came up with that? That's just awful.
It is, but we get the point at least. Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to just go down this road just a little bit more, because I think it's so important if for those who are going to find true success, especially as speakers. It's a very competitive area. But yes, set your sights on what you want to achieve, and then motion begins. Then you really are able to work towards that. Something I do in the mornings, Antoni, that I love that you said, I don't know how it works. I don't even care how it works. I just know that it works. And this is something I do in my quiet times in the mornings that I've seen tremendous growth from. I don't know how it works. It just works. So prior, I would just have a prayer journal. I just kind of write out, kind of conversations with God kind of thing. And then I kind of evolved to where I would just ask myself questions. So essentially, whatever might be bothering me, let's just say that this isn't me, I'm beyond this, but let's say you're a parent of a teenager and you're just continuously at odds with your teen, right? So the question you would write is, why can't I get along with my teenager? How can I get along with my teenager? And all of a sudden, strategies and ideas and things are moving in motion that are getting me towards that. So something a little bit more related to me is, let's just say, how can I get my speakers on paid stages during the pandemic, right? During the lockdown. That was truly, a question. How do I get my speakers booked for paid engagements during a lockdown? And I didn't go to trying to answer my question. I just wrote the question and soaked in to the question, basically told my mind and my brain that I need the answer to that question. And then, do you know, Antoni, I was introduced to the major virtual event organizers. There's just this whole world opened up to me that had never been there before. And I was coming up with strategies that weren't from me. Maybe that was like locked in there deep, but I didn't know I had those solutions. It just started happening. So I think when you're trying to connect with an audience, something that might be really powerful, tell me what you think about this, is how am I going to best reach this particular audience? What do you think?
It's a strong question. It should be asked probably a week before you even go to that event, so that the brain can marinate, the subconscious can marinate your question and then serve you an answer probably when you least expect it. It just pops up. I've had so many epiphanies like that especially when I've been out with my dog. Unfortunately, she died recently, but my dog promenades were when I came up with the best concepts, blueprints, processes, and things like that, because then I was just like free to let my subconscious mind work while I was enjoying the forest, so to say.
Yes,
so yeah, it could be, there's something about that. I had a strike of luck when the pandemic hit, because I wrote a book about virtual meetings unwillingly, because my customers asked me to in 2016. So once this thing happened, I started to post things from that book saying, hey, there are tips, there are things you can do. I was like one step ahead. And that was it, because as soon as they realized he wrote a book, then I got totally busy. I've never been so busy, almost like burnout busy for a while there. So it was crazy. But the first 3 months was, of course, completely empty. But that was good, because then I can ramp up my technical setup. I'm on my 3rd or 4th generation right now, where I'm sitting right now. So I'm pretty good at virtual gigs as well.
Fabulous. Okay. So let's talk about that. So when you are an MC, obviously I'm assuming that led to paid speaking engagements, like full on keynotes. People are like, wow, Antoni's amazing. He knows how to connect with a crowd. Why don't we bring him in to speak as a keynoter? From there, from being a moderator, MCer, how did you choose your talk topics to promote?
I didn't do it from an MC perspective at all. That was like one business area. I chose it more from the fact that I was training people in how to communicate in the best efficient and engaging way. And then they started to ask me, can you do that in 1 hour instead of 2 days or 1 day? And I said, yeah, I can give you some pointers and tips and so on. So that kind of led me into it more and more. And then I was looking into, again, psychology. I was looking into goal setting, motivation psychology, sports psychology. So I had some things to add as well when it comes to the workplace. I always talk about how to, communication, motivation, and engagement in the workplace. That's my area. That's where I'm at.
Communication, motivation, and engagement.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you want to lead people, serve clients, collaborate with colleagues, and make that a fun workplace, then that's where I'm at, so to say. And that kind of built, it started off with communication, human communication, and then it kind of built into motivation, and then goal setting, and then meetings, and so on. But it's still in the same area. How do you get along? How do you meet, greet, and treat people in a way, whether it's customers or colleagues, that make you thrive, that make you feel good inside this company that you're working with, or the government that you're working in, and helping whatever external stakeholder you have. And there's just so much going on that I think the life is just too short to be miserable at work.
Yes.
And I've had some fantastic managers in my life. And whenever I was with them, I felt so good. And then I had some shitty ones and I felt, bad. And I was thinking, you know what, we need to, there's something going on here. We need to we could do better. We could do better. So this has kind of been my main driving force. And then as it has gone along, or went along during the years, I would say that I could easily see myself changing my career if I started now, if I was young again, because I wanted to focus even more on the sustainability issues. There is no business on a dead planet. And the things that I add to, if you look at Agenda 2030, the UN goals of sustainability, there's 17 of them. The ones that I touch upon, the one that I help, are the social sustainability goals, not the ecological ones. But without them, we don't have to talk about leadership. We don't have to talk about motivation, because there are no people on the planet if we don't treat this planet well. So I can easily see myself working to help companies and organizations that are genuinely caring when it comes to people and the planet and so on. So that's why I have this luxury today to turn down companies who don't care about these things.
Yes. Yeah.
And it feels really good to do that. And I have total respect for those who can't, or focus on other things, saying, for instance, as long as they abide the law, I'm there. But I don't want to work with tobacco companies, for instance. I don't want to. It's just like, I don't see the reason why I should work with somebody who puts cancer in your lung. I can't do it. So,
yes,
whoever listens to this, it's not, I'm not cocky or anything like this. This is not arrogance. This is just my work on myself and my inner beliefs and my core values. And I want to be a Sherpa for the ones who save lives or do good for others somehow. If I can do that, then I'm happy too.
Yes. And knowing your non-negotiables, I think, are only going to make you more authentic when you stick to those. And I'm sure some of those engagements could have been very profitable, right? But
yeah. I've got questions, and I've said no, and yeah, I lost some money, but I didn't lose my soul, so I feel pretty good anyway.
Your values, and that translates, right? That energy follows you, and so I don't think you can lose, because as long as you're being authentic and true to who Antoni is, that's going to permeate. That's going to be seen in your subsequent talks, and only make you that much more attractive to speaker bookers and other organizations. I like what that you said, how you meet, greet, and treat people. And just
Yes.
the whole concept of social sustainability. It is a lot about how we treat each other. And I may not fully understand social sustainability, but I do understand meet, greet, and treat. How is that related to maybe some of the communication superpowers that you train? Because I know speakers actually hire you when they've gotten invited to a TEDx talk or to a big talk, and they want to make sure that they're going to connect with an audience on a bigger level. You train them your communication superpowers. Can you kind of give us some insights into some of those?
Yeah, sure, I can. I mean, I talk about them all the time, the 3 superpowers, and they're on a pretty high level, but then you can go deep into it, of course.
Sure.
They are in no particular order. The first one is energy. Energy so that I can believe that you believe. Why should I if you don't? So energy is mostly visible in your nonverbal communication. It's how you look and how you sound. Mostly. It's also about some of the words that you use, if they are strong or weak and so on. So energy is a lot about that. And then we can, of course, go into gestures or tonality or emphasis or tons of things when it comes to that. But that's the first thing. And for me, energy is like a magnet. If you have energy, if you ooze energy, people are drawn to you. They want to be around you, especially if you can show some sort of positive energy, mainly. And then, of course, if you talk about the serious topic that is, something really serious, then you might have to change that energy from time within the speech. But there should be something about your passion that shines through. If you don't believe in your topic, if you're only doing it because you want to be on a stage, it's going to be fake. Mm-hmm. You can fake it pretty well, but for me, energy is also about authentic type of being yourself plus 10% or something, like the good
be
self. Be
yourself plus 10%. And we've all sat in audiences where you can tell a person has done this talk so many times that they're really not there with you. The energy has shifted and you feel it. And so I love that you're bringing up that this is, I know it's not in order, but this is one of your top 3 superpowers, and that is the nonverbal communication piece, right? We think that what the sounds that come out of our mouths is what communicates, and obviously that's a big part of it. But probably the even more important part of it is how are we communicating with our body language and just with the energy that we're putting out there. Do we have any energy at all, right? Are we excited? Do we believe in what it is that we're putting forth? And don't underestimate the power of that. So thank you for bringing that to the table.
Yeah, and remind me to come back to balance afterwards, because we have to balance the superpowers. Otherwise, it's going to be strange. So that's one. Another one is empathy. Empathy, so that the people you talk to feel that you understand them. And of course, that's easier perhaps in a conversation with somebody when you have like a one-on-one or if you have smaller groups. But also for a speaker, it's about making the audience know that you get them. You understand where they're coming from. So that's a lot about connecting with them. So tons of things you can do in order to do that. You can tell the stories that they can relate to. You can ask them to contribute somehow with a hand up or something like that, or just say yes. So if you agree and they say yes, so you get this thing going on when it comes to empathy. So there's a lot of things you can do even in a speech. Although I would say again that in a conversation, it's more about asking questions and being curious and listen to the answer and so on. If you have a short speech, like most keynote speeches are not very long, then it's about connecting somehow, get them to feel that you're on the same side. If it's a longer one, then you can do exercises with them as well, and you can start making them co-create with you. I found that this works like magic. If they do half of the work, they will be happier than if you do all the work.
Yes.
Just because they're part of it in another way. They can co-create. And then finally,
create your talk.
Yes.
So for this piece, in a way where they actually feel like they're creating it with you. Is that what you're saying?
A lot of time, if they feel that they are part of the presentation somehow by being involved, they will feel more engaged in your talk than if you completely speak by yourself. I'm not saying it's for everyone. Some people are super good at, for instance, standing completely still, no body language and delivering a laser sharp message, and they do it really well. So it's not like one size fits all, but again, with the right energy and also by connecting, by interacting, by involving. And for instance, I do that a lot in the virtual settings as well. I mean, I ask them to put something in the chat, and then all of a sudden I can see, hey, Sarah, I see that you wrote this thing. Let me build on that one. And all of a sudden, Sarah will feel so seen and heard in a way that I can never do on an in-person event, because I don't know who said that, because there's no name tag of Sarah. So there are things that actually work out pretty well. But some sort of feeling that we have a conversation, feeling that this is us together, is my style, at least. That's works for me.
Fabulous. No, I love it. Okay.
Third superpower, I mean, we should not forget clarity. Clarity so that they understand you. Don't complicate things to the point where they don't get you, or dumb it up so much that they just feel it's condescending. So you have to find that nice balance. But normally people tend to complicate things more than they simplify things. So it's much easier to be complicated. And it's also much easier to forget you when you are. Or if you want to have too many messages coming out. I have 10 messages to give you. Yeah. Like, for instance, I know that I will do a speech on memory hacks within short, and that I will have 9 memory hacks. And I know already now that they will not remember 9, because we remember things in 3. So I put them like 3 by 3 by 3 in order to increase my chances here. But clarity is a lot about, making them feel smart, making them understand. So you have all the tools around storytelling, metaphors, analogies, the power of 3, the beginning and the end. There's tons of things you can do when it comes to making them remember what you said. And this is something I want to challenge, Antoniette, with you, because I've listened to a number of your episodes already, and one thing comes back over and over again, and it's that quote from Maya Angelou. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I do not.
I've learned that people will forget what you said, what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And it's a beautiful quote, and I won't say it's useless, because it's not, but it's only half the truth. You might have a strong personal brand if they remember your energy, but they won't act on anything because they cannot act on what they don't remember. So I want to challenge that just a bit and say that's 50% of what matters. A good 50%, because if they are inspired and energetic based on what you said, they will be inclined to take action, but they need to know what actions to take. And if your speech is unmemorable, even though you are energetic and so on, it doesn't work. Can I share a story with this one? Do we have time for that? Yes, I would
love that. Yes.
So this was a long time ago when I was still employed in this global company. And I saw this man locking eyes with me from the other side of the street in Stockholm. And he went towards me like a torpedo, and he said, it's you, he said, like he was almost aggressive. And I said, yeah, it's me. Who are you? I was in the crowd, in the audience when you presented outside of Miami in Boca Raton. You were awesome, man. And I said, ooh, thank you. I kind of grew an inch. And then he said, I don't remember anything you said, but you were awesome. And that was not very nice, good feedback for me. It was good feedback, but it wasn't feedback that I felt good about, because I realized at that point that I failed. Yeah, I had a nice gift. If a presentation is a present, then I had a nice gift wrapping, but there was just air inside. And of course, I remember afterwards that particular presentation that nobody did what I asked them to do, because nobody remembered what I did. Yes, I got a standard ovation and everything like that, but that was good for my personal brand, perhaps, but it didn't help us move forward. And if you want people to move forward, to make an impact, you need them to also remember something of what you said that makes sense to them. So for me, it's inspiration, but then it's also to hand out some concrete things that they can actually take with them.
So an example, let's talk about this show right now. An example, am I understanding you correctly, that your 3 key superpowers, right? That's something that they can take away, marinate in, go a little bit deeper with. Is that an example? Like any one of us in this short, brief time that we have together can take those 3 keys, right, that you gave us and actually act on them if we want to.
Ask yourself the question, am I signaling positive energy? Am I using the body language in a way that people will see that I'm passionate about that? Am I using the voice in a way that shows and that they can hear that this is something I care about? Am I clear in my message? Do they remember anything I said afterwards? Do I have tools to fix that or not? If I don't, what should I do?
Right.
Can I connect to the audience or not? How do I connect to the audience? Should I use another way? Should I try something new? Or does it work beautifully the way it does? Just asking those questions will also, of course, help you.
Questions again, right?
Yeah, it's questions all the time. And just to be clear, yes, I've been doing this for a long time. I don't see myself as a master of anything still. I probably would never will, because this is just like a learning thing. And if you open one door, then there's 1,000 more doors inside. So, but I'm doing okay. I'm feeling good, and I have a good vibe going on with the audience.
Well, you're in demand, so you're striking a chord. You're getting on stages.
I do, yeah, I do.
And you've got a huge following. So, speaking of that, I want to go a little bit deeper into clarity, and then we'll start winding down. But I know at this point, there are guests out there who are listening to this show who are interested in going deeper with you and learning a little bit more about these concepts and actually beginning to implement them in their own lives. So do you consult one-to-one? Is there a way people can reach out to you? How do you like to be reached?
Anything but smoke signals, I guess, works for me. So
stand on a mountain and just call out your name if they can.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you can spell my name, you will find me. I'm the only one in the world with that name. So Antoni Lacinai on LinkedIn, that's only me. So that's one way of just reaching out.
Lacinai. Lacinai.
Yes. And Antoni is spelled with Antoni. So it's a European spelling of that name.
It's basically my name without the et.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's the one. And AntoniLacinai.com is my webpage as well. And you have all the contact details there. So it's easy to do that.
Yes.
I'm pretty easygoing. Just contact me and we'll see what can happen.
I know you're on LinkedIn, and then of course we'll put the links in the description as well. So if I were to come to you and say, Antoni, I'm going to be speaking in front of 10,000 people, and I really want to make sure to connect with my audience, would you, I guess, step through these three pieces that you gave us: clarity, empathy, and energy? Is that something you would step through with me? How do you like to work with people?
Well, first I would like to know what you want. So how would you like to be described? Who do you want to be in this situation? And if you then say, I want to connect better. Okay, fine. What are you doing today? What is it that you would like to do? What would you like to happen? When you're done with your presentation, what has happened then? And so on. And then we can look at your whole presentation, of course, and see where can we add another question, for instance. How can we add that rhetorical question that would make them think themselves, and then you answer and they get the dopamine high? Or where can you ask them to perhaps raise your hand or just say yes or do something? Or where can you just share a story and say, have you also felt that? Or something like that. So there's a number of things we can look into and just see where can we plant those things.
Yes.
In order to make that better. Oh, there's one thing we have to say first. We have to talk about the balance before we end this up.
Yes.
We talked about the balance.
Let's talk about balance.
Especially the two ones, actually all three, but the two ones about energy and clarity, since they are the ones that are mostly visible then when you speak. You cannot have one without the other. If you only have clarity, but you don't have empathy or energy, then you're just boring. If you have clarity without empathy, you're a psychopath. But you so you have to have all three. If you only have energy, if you have high energy, lots of movements, running around on stage, incoherent, you're a clown. Unless you want to be a clown, you need to balance them. Again, it's the balance that makes it beautiful. I just wanted to say that.
I'm glad that you said that. I actually have speakers who are heavy on one area and light on other areas, and that's part of our work together, right? We need to get them to where there's a cadence and a symphony. One in particular, a retired pro football player. So much energy, like you just can't help but get excited. But we also need the substance, right? There needs to be that rest. And that being brought back up, and then you can soak into it and then come back up. If it's always up the whole way through, you're exhausted and you don't, it's kind of like what you said, you remember how he made you feel like energized, but you didn't get to walk away with something. So I absolutely love this process, energy, empathy, clarity. I would like to talk just very quickly. I know we're winding down on time, but the empathy piece and then the clarity piece. So empathy, you do need to connect with somebody in the audience. Like they need to really feel like you care about them, you get them, you understand. Because if you understand, then you have a solution. If you don't understand, how can you have a solution, right? And so one trick that I do, and I just want to see if it's something that you do or if you do something differently. I speak to one person I know I have helped, I can help, and I'm convinced in my brain anyway, that person is in the audience. That's who I'm talking with. I'm very familiar with them. I want them to feel like I've read their diaries, right? And then all of those people who I know I can help, who are sitting in the audience, feels like, wow, she really gets me. And I really get them because I have helped them in the format of another person. That's what helps me create that empathy piece in a larger audience. Can you speak to that just for a moment?
I know that one of the most famous authors in the Nordic countries in Scandinavia, he writes all his books for three people, three friends. So if we can make them feel good about the book and be surprised and so on, then he succeeded, he said. That's his way of looking into it. I don't necessarily work like that myself. I do, however, want to focus also on the process before you even come to the stage and say there's a lot of empathy and curiosity going into the pre-talk you have with the organizers. Yes. That's when you find out a lot of good things about who will come, what are the demographics, what are the psychographics, and so on. So you can ask a lot of good questions before, because then that will help you. And then once you're there, sometimes it depends on the situation. Sometimes I connect just by going out in the audience and just talk to them, like building some sort of simple, handshakes, relationship, just do something like that. And then once I'm out there, I'm trying to really make sure that I'm focusing my gaze on everyone. And even if there is 1,000 or 2,000 people in the audience, I look at one area of people and they think that I'm looking at them. So I'm trying to also build in the whole kind of eye contact thing with everyone. And if it's a broad stage, I'm going to be on each side of that stage looking also not only to the one in the middle, but also to the ones on the side. That's another way of building connection.
That's full body communication. Yes. Love that. And then the clarity piece that you spoke about. This is the biggest place where I see a lot of speakers not quite getting it, especially emerging or newer speakers. Obviously, if you are a speaker, you care about people, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't care about imparting your knowledge and your strategies. So you're heart-centered, and that's a blessing and a curse, because you know you've got the solution. You just want to, in 45 minutes or a half hour, get those solutions out to the people, right? And like you said, we can only handle so many new concepts at a time. We need to soak into them, let them become part of our help us understand it on a cellular level so that we can actually act on it. I was in publishing before, kind of right out of college. And one of my mentors in that space was brilliant. And I've never forgotten this, and it's taken me a long way. And she said, when you're building a book, you can take somebody from point A and maybe get them to point C, but don't expect to get them to point F, right? Or G or whatever down the road. If you try to accomplish too much too soon, it's going to flop. It's not going to resonate. You have to give those quick wins, those implementable wins. And then they'll want the next, and then the next, and they'll be ready for the next and the next. I think this definitely translates for speakers. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, how much should you try to accomplish in a short span of time?
This is something that I believe, based on my conversations with speakers, that most of us struggle with. Especially if you've been around for a while, then you have so many stories, I stopped counting after 60 stories that I'm sharing on stages. So probably more than that, but not on every speech though, but there's so many things going on there, so many facts
You
and figures.
choose the ones that are going to connect with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then some of them I just forgot. And then I realized, oh, that was a great story. Why am I not sharing that anymore? So, but I have some favorite stories, some signature stories. This is something that you probably should do if you're an emergent speaker, thinking about your signature stories. What is it that you should really focus on getting right to the last comma sign and so on? No, we struggle with this, and I struggle with it too, because I think that I have many good things to say. What I do many times is that I just see, if I have, let's say I have 30 minutes. Now, I want to include those 3 stories because they are really great as learning as lessons as well, lessons learned based on those. If it's only a story without the lessons learned, that's just entertainment. I want to make sure that it means something as well.
Sure.
And I know that will take some time. And then I have some of the things I wanted to get across that will take some time. And I just start to calculate. If I do a script, if it's a short one, then I can just take that script and divide it by 120. Now I know how many words per minute I speak, and now I know how long it will take.
Ooh.
And I will actually go down to 100 now. So I will even slower, to make sure that I really cover the things in time, because I always deviate something based on what's happening on the stage. Mm. So yes, it is a challenge for all of us. I don't know if that answered your question, but it is about trying to figure out what is the core message you want to get across for this audience today. Yes. And then focus on that. Okay. And I'm saying it knowing that I also want to add 1 or 2 or 3 more things that probably I could have been without. But it's just my urge of giving them as much as I can. It's like I have this CEO and sales director on one side of my brain, and then I have the artist and the performer on the other side, and the artist and the performer just want to give them everything. Yep. While the CEO and the sales director says, stop, you have like 3 more speeches you can give them if you want to, because if they like this, they will also like the next part and the next part. So yeah, it's a constant battle in my own mind of what to do and what not to do. But I'm getting better at focusing on the core content and then giving examples of that one instead.
And I have found when you give less, there are implementable wins that make that audience and thus the organizer want to bring you back for the next win, right? And it's not because you're holding back. It's because you're making sure they get that first couple of steps so that they're ready.
Yes. And you can instead use some of the time to give examples of and asking more questions like, what if you do this? What if you don't? Imagine when. What happens then, and so on.
Yes. Okay. So many insightful gems for those voices who are really wanting to get out there and get onto more stages and connect with their audiences on a deeper level. For the speaker who is feeling like maybe they don't have that connection piece, right? To connect with their audience through the way that they communicate nonverbally and verbally. What is maybe one first step that they can take to start moving themselves into that more elevated place? Because we're always elevating, hopefully. We're always evolving and elevating. This is a pact to impact with our voices, with our gifts. What can you impart?
How about, I want to say many things again. But how about this? Be interested instead of interesting, and realize that everyone in the audience. I learned this from a communications trainer in the late 90s, a person from New York, and he said that everyone is tuning into the same radio channel, WIIFM, and it stands for What's in it for me. And if you have that mindset, you can let go of yourself for a while and just thinking about what's in it for them, based on what I can offer. What's in it for them? What can I give them that will make their life just a little bit better?
Be interested versus interesting.
You are going to be interesting anyway because you're up on a stage. People know that. So what can you do, perhaps before even the process begins, or before you're even up on the stage? What can you do to be interested instead of interesting? How can you think about the people you want to meet and see, what can I say to make just a bit of a difference, to make that impact? It doesn't have to be that people cry or give you standing ovations every time. Sometimes it's the small things. Sometimes I say things like, almost by accident, it just slips in. And then that's the thing they remember the most. You never know what it is, but you can at least have an attempt to go at a certain route.
This is so powerful, Antoni, because I know even in, let's say, social settings, you're speaking with somebody new, and if they are only interested in you finding them interesting, and you're not feeling any sort of they have any interest in you, you're automatically not interested in them. But once they do show interest in you, you're interested in them. It's just a human nature, right? And in a bigger setting, in front of an audience, that comes through as well. Is it all about me, or is it more about you? You can tell the difference between those speakers, and you've dialed that in, and it's very powerful. Thank you for leaving us with that, because that's a perfect note to wrap on.
Well, thank you so much. I'm thinking that I love podcasts like this and to be a part of that. But sometimes the awkward thing is that I don't really get to ask you a lot of questions, and I just have to live with it. I understand the concept and the format. So, but otherwise, I would just like to say, what do you think? For everything I've just said, let's see what you think instead, and so on. But it is what it is.
Well, it's been fabulous having you, and I know that you've put a lot of nuggets in my mind to start really soaking into and thinking on, and I appreciate that. Right, that's kind of the fun of being a host, is I get kind of the front row seat in diving into what took you from point A to where you are now, and it's been a beautiful journey. And I so appreciate you being so generous with sharing that with not only me but our audience. And I know that there are many out there who are going to walk away and become better speakers because of the time you spent with us. So thank you, Antoni.
Thank you. Let's just help others and ourselves grow.
Yes. Empathy. That's the empathy piece.
Yeah.
All right. Well, ciao for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the SpeakPact podcast. To become a recommended speaker of Antoniette's WPC speaker agency, or you are a host or planner looking for a dynamic expert in optimized performance, Antoniette would like to personally meet with you. Secure a time with her at SpeakerBooker.com. Again, that is SpeakerBooker.com. It all begins with a vision, a voice, and a pact to impact. Join the SpeakPact movement by joining our new private Facebook group at the link in our show notes. Find us on nearly every social media platform at One Antoniette. That's number 1, ANTONIETTE, or simply #SpeakPact.